Hi, welcome to the Listen Up Girl podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randall-Friedman, and today we've got a lot to get through. We've got a vice president going after hospitals with a fraud claim that doesn't hold up, a Massachusetts attorney general getting confronted live on the radio, a congressman's son heading to jail while she lectures the rest of us about parenting, two directors who said absolutely not to Harry Potter money, Neil Patrick Harris looking back at the year he had to come out on his own terms, and a beach party in California that refused to be scared off. So let's get into it, starting with J.D. Vance and the HHS accuse hospitals of fraud for providing trans care. So we start with a new front in the war on gender-affirming care. The Department of Health and Human Services just released a report called Wolves in White Coats, claiming hospitals are mislabeling gender-affirming care to defraud insurance companies. Vice President J.D. Vance, acting as chairman of the White House Task Force to eliminate fraud, sent letters to the Attorney General and the HHS Inspector General ordering investigations into more than 200 hospitals and clinics. Here's the actual substance of the claim. Some providers have billed care under the Code of Endocrine Disorder Unspecified, includes a gender-specific code. HHS says that adds up to about $50 million in insurance payments. But stretched out over a decade across every state, that's about $100,000 a year per state. Not exactly a criminal empire. The Human Rights Campaign's president called it out directly, saying you cannot handpick a panel of anti-trans activists, feed them research from an anti-trans advocacy groups, slap an HHS letterhead on it, and call that an independent science. Regret rates for gender-affirming care sit at around 1% to 2%, and every major medical association in the country recognizes it as a legitimate treatment. This isn't about fraud. It's about finding a legal angle after the courts kept calling the DOJ's earlier subpoena campaign exactly what it was, a fishing expedition designed to harass and intimidate trans kids and their families. Our next story is Trans Advocates Confronts Massachusetts AG live on the radio. So story 2 takes place right here in Boston, where I'm at, where the fight over strategy got personal. At a live forum broadcast on Boston Public Radio, a member of the group Protect Trans Youth confronted a Massachusetts Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, over her refusal to sue hospitals and clinics that have stopped offering gender care under federal pressure. These hospitals are not being shown that breaking the law is going to have any consequences, the activist said. Clinics are dropping like flies. One protester held up a sign that read, AG Campbell betrayed us. Campbell pushed back hard, saying prosecuting hospitals like Children's Hospital and Fenway organizations, she says, are already doing their best to under a federal regime targeting them daily. Plays directly into the administration's hands. I think the federal administration wants us to be doing this, she said, our coalition dividing. This all happened the same day. New federal laws and rules barring Medicare coverages for trans youth care were finalized. Governor Maura Healey's office says the state will lean on its Affirming Care Health Care Trust Fund to cover the gap. It currently holds $8.5 million. It's a real and painful disagreement inside our own coalition about the best way to fight back, and it's not going to go away quietly. Now we go to Lauren Boebert's son heads to jail, and she's still worried about gay dads. So story 3, let's buckle up while you hear this one. Tyler Boebert, son of Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, just reached a plea deal on the child neglect charges after he let his 2-year-old wander the neighborhood in nothing but a diaper for the second time. Prosecutors are recommending 30 days in jail plus a mandatory parenting program. This is the top of a separate child abuse arrest and a prior guilty plea for identity theft. Boebert defended her son publicly, calling it a miscommunication. Here's the part that matters for us. Nobody, least of all his own mother, is questioning whether Tyler gets to keep being called a dad. Compare that to what she said back in 2022 about then Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg taking parental leave for his premature newborns in the NICU. She mocked him for trying to chest feed. That insult is still circulating online today, years later, alongside doctored images. It's part of a much bigger pattern, the same greater than campaign funded by Hobby Lobby money that argues straight parents are inherently better than queer ones. Meanwhile, an actual dad gets a plea deal and a defense team from his mom. The double standard is writing itself. Next, 2 directors say absolutely not to Harry Potter money. Now for some good news, and it's a big one. Director Ali Pankwi and Kate Herron both turned down opportunities to direct episodes of HBO's upcoming Harry Potter series, specifically because of JK Rowling's transphobia. When Allie's agent asked if the answer was a hard no, she replied, absolutely fucking not, adding, it's simply this easy to say no to funding transphobia. Herron, who directed Loki and The Last of Us, said she's been asked twice and her answer is never going to change. This matters because Rowling isn't just attached to the franchise, she's an executive producer, and she's been using her fortune to personally bankroll anti-trans battles in the UK through a fund that's been quietly operating since 2024. That fund helped bankroll the legal challenge behind last year's UK Supreme Court ruling excluding trans women from sex-based discrimination protections. The Harry Potter franchise is worth an estimated $25 billion. Every dollar that Allie and Herron turned down is a dollar of principal. Sometimes the biggest headline is just 2 women saying no. So good for them. Next, Neil Patrick Harris looks back on the year he had to come out. So story 5 is a little more reflective. Neil Patrick Harris opened up in an interview about coming out publicly back in 2006 at 33 years old. And he said it wasn't entirely his choice. Gossip bloggers were closing in, guessing which closeted actor they'd be out next, and Harris was terrified he'd be the target. How his now husband, David Boebert, used to walk behind photographers at events just so the 2 of them wouldn't be photographed together. When the publicist accidentally implied he wasn't gay to a reporter, Harris decided to get ahead of himself with a statement to People magazine. I think at this point I was a little scared about what would come from it, he said, but what actually happened, mostly indifference, and he credits the people who came out before him for absorbing the hardest part of that fight he didn't have to. It's just a reminder that someone as beloved and successful as Harris didn't have to come out entirely on his own terms. He got outrun by the timeline. And it's worth sitting with how much has changed and how much hasn't in the 20 years since. So happy coming out parties anniversary, Neil Patrick Harris. Next, haters threatened to gay beach party, and the community showed up anyway. The Big Gay Flotilla, an informal annual beach meetup in Long Beach, California, went forward last week, and despite a wave of death threats and homophobic online attacks and the day before. One man who's posted a threat, including a graphic reference to a firearm, was arrested and is being held on $50,000 bail. Attendance was down from last year. Organizer Sal Flores said about 200 people showed up compared to 300 plus the year before, but the ones who came with purpose. There was a particular guy that came from Laguna, Flores said. He's like, I saw the news and I had to come and support it. Community members reached out asking what they could do to help, and some saying, if you cancel, we're still going to show up. The entire point of these events is we need spaces to belong, Flores said. This is ours, and we're not going to hide. So that is your news for today on Monday, August 17th. A quick recap. JD Vance and HHS are accusing hospitals of fraud providing trans health care. The real numbers don't add up. A Massachusetts trans activist confronted the state's attorney general live on radio over her strategy against the federal government. Lauren Boebert's son is headed to jail, and she's still more worried about gay dads and her own family. 2 directors said absolutely not to Harry Potter money over JK Rowling's transphobia. Neil Patrick Harris opened up about the year of gossip bloggers nearly forced him out of the closet. And a gay beach party in Long Beach refused to be scared off by death threats. I am your host, Zach Randall Friedman, and thanks for listening to the Listen Up Girl podcast. If today's episode meant something to you or moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave a review if you're feeling generous, because it only takes a few minutes. And come back tomorrow, because the news doesn't stop, and neither do we. Have a great week, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.